welcome to the Alliance for Justice's annual Champions for Justice dinner. I'm especially excited to be here tonight as we honor Robbie Kaplan, one of the most inspiring litigators in America. This is the woman who took down the Defense of Marriage Act.
Welcome to the legal resistance tonight. I'm so excited to be here as we honor a true champion of justice, Robbie Kaplan, and as we hear from some extraordinary individuals, like Sally Yates. For the last 2 years, we at AFJ have thought of this annual gathering as an inspiring moment in a rather bleak landscape. But this year is even better. Not only will we hear from some wonderful people, but we are gathering at a time when the political tide seems to be turning. After 2 years of one-party rule in Washington, the midterm election sent a loud and clear message of change. I am so grateful to all of you. By coming this evening, you have helped those who step through those courthouse doors. You've helped them find judges who properly give effect to our nation's laws. You've helped them find judges who can put themselves in a plaintiff's shoes. Will we win every fight? No. But I believe at some point we will begin to set things right. We will see a White House whose inhabitants believe in the rule of law. We will see a country restored with the decency that has been thrust aside. We will see that Americans have chosen leaders willing to stand up for what's right. And they will do that because, like the speakers we hear tonight, and the thousands that came out on that October day. Like activists all over America, you see the urgency of our task and have decided to fight harder. Thank you so much.
And today, we look back on that Supreme Court decision to relegate DOMA to the dustbin of history with an air of inevitability. But the truth is, but for Robbie Kaplan's tenacity, but for her persuasive advocacy, but for Robbie Kaplan's unwavering courage, it would not have happened. And I am very honored to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, a remarkable woman, a former colleague at the Justice Department, an inspiring leader, and a friend, Sally Yates. Sally reminds us that such notions of public service, which can seem so quaint these days, really do represent the best of who we can be as a nation: unselfish and compassionate, principled and courageous, inclusive and unafraid. Sally reminds us of these things because Sally embodies these things. And for the gift of her service, for the gift of her courage, all of us owe her a debt of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's keynote speaker, the Honorable Sally Yates.
Wow, for once in my life, I'm at a loss for words. I was going to have to send Department of Justice lawyers into court to take the position that this travel ban had absolutely nothing to do with religion. This is despite the fact that it only applied to Muslim-majority countries, and despite the fact that the president had made repeated statements, both on the campaign trail and after he had been elected, about his intent to effectuate a Muslim ban. Really, the harder issue for me really was whether to resign or whether to direct the department not to defend the executive order, because resigning would not have protected the integrity of the Department of Justice. It would not have protected our Constitution, and it would not have been doing my job. And so I directed the department not to defend the executive order. And regardless of whether I'd had 72 hours or 72 days, I would have made the very same decision. Now, to carry out the promise of apolitical law enforcement, it is a time-honored norm, at least since Watergate, for there to be a strict separation between the White House and the Department of Justice on cases and investigations. Democratic and Republican administrations alike have recognized that the Department of Justice is not just another federal agency. It's the only department, after all, that is named for a virtue. And to prevent actual interference or even just the perception of interference, no one at the White House should have anything to do with any investigation or prosecution, period. While we can't control how our leaders act, we can control how we respond to it. We know who our president is. He has shown us that day after day. The question we have to answer is, who are we? Our history is littered by the presence of individuals and factions who have tried to exploit our imperfections. But it is more powerfully marked by the presence of individuals whose vigilance toward a more perfect union has prevailed. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. And by refusing to be silent, that's who we will remain. Thank you again for having me here tonight.
Robbie acts. She acts when inaction is easy, when so many others merely tweet or vent or simmer with rage. She acts when action is scary. When I married the man that I loved just 3 months ago, I thought to myself, thank goodness Robbie acts. It is therefore a true privilege to see Robbie recognized as the champion of justice that I know her to be. Thank you all for joining us.
Robbie got up and said, I get this. You all, when you speak about your sexual harassment, your sexual assault, when you come out with that most shameful thing that you always kept so private, and you speak about it out loud to reclaim your power, that's coming out. We've been there. We know what that is. And what she did in that moment wasn't say anything about their lives or make judgments or to give anything but the sort of the smart political analogy. But what she was really saying is, sisters, I got your back. Robbie Kaplan always has people's back. That's my girl. Robbie Kaplan.
It has now been more than 5 years since Windsor was decided, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on the experience. So I thought what I would do tonight is share with you some important lessons I learned from that case. Number one, facts matter. Our view was that the best way to defend DOMA, and my colleague James Essex from the ACLU is here with me tonight, was to tell the story of how DOMA harmed two people, Edie Windsor and her late spouse, Thea Spire. How did we do that? We told their story as the great love story that it was. Our goal was not to write some kind of lesbian Harlequin romance, but instead to show that Edie and Thea, who spent 44 years together in sickness and health till death did them part, lived their lives with the same decency and dignity as any other married couple. By showing that truth, we demonstrated that Edie and Thea had the kind of marriage that any single one of us, straight or gay, would be so lucky to have. Indeed, even in today's era of viral lies, we are seeing that facts matter and that they have real consequences. Number two, the law matters. Of course the law matters. The idea that, as John Adams and Sally Yates said, we are a government of laws, not of men, was central to the founding of this nation. But while it is tempting to celebrate the courts for upholding the law and the Constitution, such as in Windsor, such celebrations, as we've all heard, we have a chorus here tonight, would ignore the very real threat to our system that is posed by constant assaults on settled law today, particularly by the executive branch. Number three, dignity matters. The sense of dignity that animates the Supreme Court's jurisprudence in Windsor is not necessarily limited to people. Like my client, Edie Windsor, principles and institutions like the rule of law, the United States Constitution, and the presidency itself have their own inherent sense of dignity. The stability and strength of our system necessarily depends on that dignity. In other words, our system is built not only on the written words of the United States Code or the Constitution, but on a whole series of unwritten norms, conventions, and understandings that must be respected in order for democracy and the rule of law to be preserved. What Windsor means is that courts matter. What Windsor means is that the United States Constitution and the rule of law matter. And what Windsor means is that what lawyers and judges do every single day really, really matters a lot. Thank you so much for this honor.